Okay, everybody, welcome back again. This is Max speaking. Today we are going to go into chapter 1.4, the Rotschild and its royal minions. As you can see on the screen, that's Mr. Jacob Rotschild, who recently passed away. We're gonna deep dive into the origins of this family and what they have done to our collective through the centuries. Before we do that, however, I need to shamelessly plug my book again. As you know, in the description below, you can find it on Amazon. Please go there, look at it. If you want to purchase it, please do. And please leave me a positive review because I really need your support. News of the day is that we also opened up a Brighteon channel where you can find all the podcasts. I'm a big fan of Brighteon. I'm a big fan of Mike Adams, the founder of Brighteon. You should definitely look into this website and also use their Enoch large language model AI engine, which works really, really well for awakened people like us. As previously, we also have a channel here on Rumble. And we still have the YouTube channel up. So please, if you don't mind, try to go to these three channels, follow the channels, click the follow button, give me a thumbs up if you're inclined to do so. It really helps me to get the word out there, okay? Now, I have to be perfectly clear. I am not in this to sell more books, okay? I couldn't care less. I didn't write this book to make money or to capitalize on it. I just feel that this is information that needs to go out into the collective so we can all have a clear understanding of what's really going on. And as we move along in these chapters, you will understand why this information is so important. Nobody ever made money writing a book, okay? I'm a testament to that. Unless your name is Stephen King or Hemingway, don't even bother to waste all this time, okay? It just is just not worth it. So any help is deeply appreciated. Help me get up the rankings on these podcast channels so that we can spread the word. Thank you very much. Now, all men are not created equal. Black people excel in sports and endurance. White folk are generally seen as more creative and inventive. The Asians are incredible mathematicians. My wife, honestly, is outrageously smart. When it comes to Khazarian mafia types, they excel in one thing beyond all else: making money. An astonishing amount of money. They do not do this by being greedy or cheap, but by investing large amounts of wealth into long-term, well-conceived plans, plots, and schemes. Sometimes centuries in the making. The Khazarian mafia plans in generations, not in years. As you know, we started this book in about 1000 BC, in our timeline. And as we stand now in the timeline, in the 18th century, and the same entities are still in charge. This tells us something about the level of commitment to the cause they have thus far demonstrated. The pinnacle of the Khazarian mafia's wealth creation is undoubtedly the Rotschild family. Many stories surround them, many conspiracies as well. In the following little video, you will find a detailed explanation of the name Rotschild in Hebrew, and some other interesting facts you might not be aware of. So let's play this for you.
The name Rothschild is deeply meaningful when translated into Hebrew. Perhaps the German Jewish name Rothschild is directly transliterated into Hebrew letter by letter to mimic its sound, rather than translated into Hebrew word by word to convey its hidden meaning, because the correct Hebrew translation of the German word Rothschild is Magen Edom, meaning shield of the Edomites. The Hebrew word Edom means red, as well as the nation of Edom descended from Esau, Jacob's evil twin. The name Edom is composed of the word Adam, Aleph, Dalet, Mem, plus the serpent letter Vav, which is a pictogram of a snake. The Hebrew word Edom signifies the joining of the holy bloodline of Eve with the satanic seed of the serpent through their son Cain by adding a snake, a Vav, to the name Adam. Edom is literally spelled Adam, who is also Eve, plus the snake of Vav in the Garden of Eden, to graphically and cryptically portray Judaism's secret doctrine that Gentiles are the satanic offspring of the evil serpent and Eve. Eve herself is said to be the evil, tempting female side of Adam, which means that Gentiles derive entirely from evil and have no redeeming qualities whatsoever. Many of the leading Rothschilds have had a messiah complex and acted as dynastical kings of the Jews, like King David. They adopted a coat of arms that mimics the German Jewish royal houses of Hanover and Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, as well as the Royal Scottish and related regal coat of arms of Great Britain, which came to be ruled by those same German Jewish royal houses. The German Jewish monarchs of Great Britain changed the name of their house to Windsor in 1917 to conceal their German Jewish roots shortly before Lord Balfour issued his declaration to Lord Walter Rothschild in the name of the King's majestic government. The unicorn signifies God, the Messiah son of David, and the Sapphira Hesed, the mercy and love he brings to the Jewish people in the form of the rainbow. The lion is the unicorn's arch-enemy, Satan, the Messiah son of Joseph, and stands for Samael and the red planet Mars, and the Sapphira Din and Gevurah, the judgment, punishment, and power of Satan. The Sephirotic Rothschild coat of arms contains a red shield behind the moon of Yesod, the Sapphira of the two Messiahs. It also exhibits the six-pointed Magen David, or Shield of David, on the left-hand evil side. The Zionists changed the color of this Islamic six-pointed seal of Solomon to the color blue, which they believe safeguards Jews from the evil eye and casts Samael's consuming blue fire from heaven down upon the Gentiles to exterminate them. The pentagram seal of Solomon is also inherent in the famous five sons of Meyer Amschel Rothschild, as well as the fifth Sapphira, red Mars, and satanic Samael, Din. Meyer in Hebrew means one who shines like the silvery moon on the Rothschild coat of arms. The moon is Yesod, the Messiah's. It is interesting to note that the British mistake the lion to represent England and the unicorn, Scotland, on their coat of arms, and that the Scottish often have red hair and ruddy complexions like Edom and King David. Red represents the Egyptian god Set, the god of the redlands of the Egyptian deserts. Judaism is Seth Typhon worship. The name David Meyer de Rothschild bears strong messianic meanings related to King Messiah, son of David. King David was ruddy red, and the name David is spelled Dalet Vav Dalet in Hebrew. It contains two of the letters of the Hebrew word Edom and the all-important snake letter Vav right in the middle. Vahav is also the middle letter of the Torah in the belly in Leviticus chapter 11, verse 42. David had the blood of Cain in his veins through his maternal ancestors, making him one of the ruling Bene Elohim, or sons of the gods. It is interesting to note that David Meyer de Rothschild has shown his love for the Sapphira Malkut, the earth, the kingdom of the world to come, and has journeyed to both the Arctic and Antarctic poles, which in some mythologies are believed to contain portals to a subterranean world to come illuminated by the fires of the Black Sun in hell. Visit cjbbooks.com to learn more about the hidden meanings of Kabbalah.
So, That was interesting, right? The story of the Rothschilds began in 1769 in Frankfurt, Germany, when Meyer Amschel Rothschild, an immigrant of Khazaria and Khazarian mafia associate, and thus of the Jewish faith, he was by decree not allowed to own land or property due to his faith. He followed his family's tradition and became a textile trader in the ghetto of Frankfurt. But business was hard. As they were not allowed to produce anything themselves, profits were hard to make, to say the least. He needed more profitable business. He soon discovered that trading gold coins and antiques would be much more lucrative. He was a very shrewd businessman and soon discovered what we call front running. He became employed by the royals as a court agent, basically the middleman for all the transactions the family wanted to make. Prince William of the Hesse Castle was his main customer. Whenever William wanted to obtain gold coins, he asked Major or Mayor to get them for him in the market. What Mayor did was to purchase the coins with borrowed money. He accepted the order from the prince, placed on the market the identical order, and on top placed his own order with the borrowed money, creating a much larger order. This larger order was processed as a bulk order, thus decreasing the cost. Obviously, a lot of negotiations were involved, but he surely got the best price he could. He then sold back the coins to the price, paid off the loan, and pocketed the process. What you see on the screen now describes and explains the process. One could say that he alone invented what we call the current stock market as we know it today. So that's how it works. By the year 1782, Meyer had amassed a vast fortune very quickly, and the royals were so impressed that they employed his skills to manage their large wealth as well. Great achievement indeed, but for Meyer this was just the beginning. He decided to establish his own bank to gain even more credibility and prestige. This turned out very well for Meyer. By the end of the 17th century, he was the richest man in Frankfurt. At this point in his life, he starts thinking of leaving a legacy for the future. He needed to expand and do the same thing over again in other countries. It was, after all, a well-tested and established process by then. To expand his dynasty, he shipped 4 of his 5 sons to the big cities in Europe: Vienna, Naples, Paris, and London. Now, you would think that it makes sense to go to Vienna, it's a capital. It makes sense to go to Paris, it's a capital. It makes sense to go to London, it's a capital. But why Naples in Italy? Why not Rome? Well, the easy explanation here is, and I know because I grew up in Italy, so I know these things. Naples was the city closest to the royal castle of the Savoy. The Savoy family were the royals of Italy until the Second World War, when Mussolini kicked them out and banned the family from ever entering into Italian territory again. So Naples was very strategic for them because it was a stone throw away from the royal family. So that's a nice little side point. So in the 1800s, Great Britain was a superpower. The empire is at its peak, with the British Navy being unparalleled in terms of force and dominating the trade routes. Nathan Rothschild was the Sun Station in London. Well trained in the business of finance, he established a trading house under enormous pressure from the father. He needed to demonstrate to his father that he could uphold the family legacy. He was given £20,000 by Meyer to invest in England, and he immediately got very ambitious to generate as much profit as possible. He decided to invest in the textile industry that at the time was booming in England, and he managed to create 3 revenue streams from the industry: the raw material, the dyeing, and the manufacturing. He basically front-ran the industry by selling the manufacturers the raw materials, the dye, thus making 3 profits instead of 1, and then selling the finished product cheaper than anybody. In a short period of time, the £20,000 grew to 60,000. Nathan soon became well known for his trading abilities that were not always on the up and up, as plenty of smuggling was involved. Not before long, he has made sufficient capital to open a bank and maintain the family legacy. Meyer never saw it materialize, unfortunately, as he passed away in 1812. When all sons gathered by his deathbed, he famously told them that it would be essential to keep the business within the family and to bond between the brothers, thus establishing a competitive edge against the competition. This unique business approach has since then benefited them greatly. One cannot ask or speak about Meyer Amschel Rothschild without mentioning what many consider to be his biggest contribution to history, which I will explain as follows. In the year 1748, in the town of Ingolstadt, a child was born. His name was Johann Adam Weishaupt. He was left an orphan by the age of 5 and was taken in by the Jesuits, who we spoke of before, who raised and educated him into a very intelligent individual. He became a professor in canon law at the Jesuit University of Ingolstadt, where he rewrote ancient historical documents in which the ideology of Lucifer would eventually lead to the complete control of the world. Adam Weishaupt was selected to lead the group and run their organization. So on May 1st, 1776, he founded the Bund der Perfektibilisten, the Order of the Perfectionists, later to be called the Order of the Illuminati. It was essentially the integration of the financial empire of the Rothschilds and the military power of the Order of the Jesuits. Their goal, a creation of a new world order, a world government, and complete world dominance. It sounds very familiar, doesn't it? Weishaupt based most of his work on ancient documents, as we mentioned before. One of these documents was a letter given to him by Rothschild himself, and this letter was referred to as the Constantinople letter from 1489 and was of extreme value to the Khazarian mafia. This one letter describes a plea for help from the Khazarian mafia leader in France to the Khazarian mafia high council in Constantinople at the time. They felt threatened by other ethnic groups in France and even by the king that was forcing them to convert to Christianity. The answer from the council was clear and concise. It said, if they force you to convert, do it. Infiltrate the church and take them down from the inside. The season of your goods and treasures, let them take it. Make your sons merchants, so they can later take it back from them. As they make attempts on your lives, make your sons doctors and apothecaries, so they can take away Christian lives. To gain control, make your sons advocates and lawyers, and see it that they always mix themselves up with the affairs of the state, in order that by putting Christians under your yoke, you may dominate the world and be avenged on them. Now, this sounds very much like what we've read before, right? Infiltration, fake conversion, and ruthless revenge. A very long-winded plan at that. Classic Khazarian mafia tactic. In 1777, Weishaupt joined the Grand Orient Masonic Lodge, making over 2,000 Jesuits heads of the many lodges around the world. Brilliant move in terms of world expansion, as the infrastructure was already in place by the Masons. Weishaupt later left the Jesuit order in order to leave no historical trace of his involvement between the Jesuit Council, the Vatican, in the illustrious plans of the Illuminati. So we have now connected what was described in the last chapter to the Rothschild family. We have the Knights Templars, we have the Jesuit Order and the Vatican, we have the Masons, and now we have the Illuminati. That brings it all together. Maybe you start to understand why I say that the Mason has all this influence and power in the world, because they really, really do. Now back to the storyline. Europe fell into war in the 19th century. Contrary to most wars at the time, when negotiations would end them, these wars were very ideological and long-lasting. Britain managed to execute 6 wars in 1 century and managed this without an economic collapse. Pretty remarkable feat, I might say. The Duke of Wellington was in charge of the war with Napoleon's France, who just happened to be a high-degree Mason, by the way, at the time. And while battling on French territory, he realized that they required a large amount of French silver coins to manage local expenses. The British banks were at this time stretched to its limit. Nathan Rothschild seized this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and proceeded as follows. Knowing that the empire desperately needed funds to be sent to the front lines in France and Portugal, the East India Company at the time was arriving with £800,000 worth of gold from Asia. He went to the auction and bought it all in cash, knowing that the Duke of Wellington urgently needs it as he arranged for the transport to France and Portugal through his own channels. This obviously generated colossal profits. Supply and demand, right? From this moment on, the House of Rothschild war becomes a very profitable business. Their European network of banks was set up in a unique manner that allowed nations to exchange currencies, taking up to 8% in commission for such trades. But this was not everything for them. They understood very quickly that information was a currency in itself, and that speed was king. They invested in the best pigeon carriers and groomed the fastest horses for their private couriers, thus front-running the money markets on the exchanges, being 10 steps ahead of their competitors. The profits in the currency exchanges became astronomical, and controlling their own banks in different countries allowed them to profit on each and every trade back and forth. One story that is never mentioned in the history books, and thus is my absolute favorite, is the following. It speaks of the absolute ruthlessness of Nathan Rothschild, his most brilliant move that actually changed history forever. During the famous Battle of Waterloo on 18th of June 1815 between Arthur Wellesley, Duke of Wellington, and Napoleon Bonaparte, the French forces were defeated, and it signified the end of the war. Nathan awaited news from the battlefield anxiously, as he had a plot in mind that would change the world. When his courier arrived to London with the news of the battle, Nathan proceeded down to the London Stock Exchange and sold all his British guilds. Guilds are equivalent to bonds of today, making the exchange believe that Britain had lost. All the merchants followed suit and dumped theirs as well. This obviously led to a total collapse of the market, and a big panic ensued. He later reversed course and purchased back all the guilds' bonds in much larger amounts for pennies. When the news finally made it to England, everybody realized that France had actually lost. The guild prices skyrocketed and Nathan suddenly owned everything. In one swoop, he basically took over the Bank of England, and King George III could do absolutely nothing. As of this day, the Rothschild family owns the British Empire and the royal family. A famous quote from Nathan at the time goes as follows: "Give me control of a nation's money, and I care not who makes its laws." Now here we show a nice little picture of King Charles III that we mentioned already, with the existing Rothschild of today. When you can poke royalty in the chest like they're your bitch, you may be a Rothschild. This is a very, very significant picture indeed. In the next chapter, I will describe what the Khazarian mafia did with this power when they started venturing to the east. Their crown jewel, the London Bank, becomes incredibly powerful, and Nathan Rothschild becomes the wealthiest man in the world. On July 28, 1836, Nathan passes away at the age of 58. His passing rocks the market internationally, and the family is left without a leader. A rather shocking passing for the day, as the Rothschilds were notorious to live long and healthy lives. He was even survived by his own mother, who lived until well in her 90s. Nevertheless, the banking dynasty, with its decentralized banks, lived on, and are still very active to this day. Nathan's younger brother, James, head of the Paris branch of the bank, becomes family head, and he ventures into a new project such as railroad development through Europe, thus diversifying the family business. At this point in time, they had amassed such enormous wealth that it had to diversify in different assets, thus buying shares in different companies around Europe, especially in the metal industries that were booming at the time. By the mid-19th century, France was in trouble. The Napoleonic Wars had drained the coffers of the state, the population was hungry, and the gap between rich and poor was enormous. It was not a good place to be in for rich bankers at the time, and James's bank was burned to the ground in Paris. Business was non-existent, and James had to reach out to his uncle Lionel in London for assistance. Due to the family bond, Lionel accepted and bailed him out. The family would struggle for the next few decades, and the individual banks, with young Rothschilds at their helm, were fractured. Their name will soon appear again, though, when we talk about America's rise, as they play a pivotal role in its founding and development. For now, let's just focus on the more obscure details regarding this family. We know for a fact that they are Khazarian mafia. This has been proven without a doubt. What is interesting are the things that the history books wish to hide from us. And as always, history is written by the winners, right? Here are some unknown factoids that I find intriguing. The Rothschild family was engaged in a substantial amount of incest. Nathan prohibited his daughters to marry anyone but their direct cousins to maintain the bloodline. One went to the extreme and married her own uncle. The Rothschild has bankrolled both sides of each war for profit, especially from losing countries who would struggle to repay. Not very surprising after what we read above, but important to keep in mind nonetheless. The Rothschilds are estimated to be worth anything from 250 to 500 billion US dollars. They, however, never show up in any publications such as Forbes magazine or others that list the wealthiest family. My understanding is that they are actually worth trillions of dollars, but we can never access such data as publications such as Forbes, etc., belong to them. They are said to have manipulated the gold market for over 2 centuries. What a surprise. As I am myself a big gold bug, I am not at all surprised by this. I know for a fact that they were responsible for the gold fix, which is a daily event out of London, where all the bullion banks collude to control the bullion prices worldwide. It is indeed a global collusion. Some believe that the Rothschilds were responsible for every economic depression in the USA for the last 2 centuries. I wholeheartedly agree. Amschel Rothschild, not the old man, but the younger one, hanged himself at the age of 41 in 1996 after a merger meeting that granted him chairmanship of the business. This occurred at the Hotel Le Bristol in Paris. David Meyer the Rothschild refused the family business and became an environmentalist. spokesperson instead. He built a catamaran out of plastic bottles in 2009 and sailed it from California to Sydney. I guess that's what happens when you have more money than you can count. You get kind of bored, right? Now, the picture you see on your screen is a picture of the current Rothschild family in present time. The dude in the red ring on the right corner of the photo is James Alefantis, owner of the notorious Comet Ping Pong Pizza restaurant in Washington, D.C., which is currently embroiled in the Pizzagate scandal, supposedly including child rape and other satanic rituals, involving no other than Hillary Clinton and Huma Abedin, her assistant, and current spouse of Alex Soros, son of the monster George Soros. The media went overboard trying to defend him, but we know, yes we know, he's a Rothschild too. Another terrifying family connection is this gentleman on the picture on the screen. Mr. Klaus Schwab, the founder of the WEF, or as I call them, the Mother WEFers, the World Economic Forum. This carbon copy of a human being is also related to them, but clearly not functioning on the same level. Probably too much inbreeding through time. The perfect Bond villain, if there ever was one. You can see on the left side the family tree of Klaus Schwab. His mother was indeed a Rothschild. And if you ever see this man on the beach, run as far away as you possibly can. The guy is an absolute freak show. It gets even more interesting in modern times, because we have something called the internet. And keyboard warriors like me managed to dig up all kinds of information that we could not access before. In the 1970s, they bankrolled a very interesting character called Robert Maxwell, also a Khazarian mafia associate. At this point in time, the family had taken a big step from the limelight and focusing only on financing nations and super elites. This Maxwell character seems out of place as he comes out of nowhere. Mr. Maxwell served in the British Army during World War II. After the war, he worked for British intelligence and later entered the publishing industry. In the 1950s and 60s, he acquired several publishing companies, but to expand his empire, he needed funding that only the Rothschild could provide. He somehow received the funding he needed. In the 1980s, turmoil engulfed the family as the banking industry was diversifying some of the brothers, and some of the brothers wanted to follow suit. This feud resulted in Evelyn de Rothschild, that's the guy who poked the prince. Evelyn de Rothschild took control and sidelining Jacob and Victor. Jacob is the guy you see on your screen right now. This family drama, however, was short-lived. Very soon, another bigger scandal ensued. Mr. Maxwell was exposed for misappropriating the pension funds of his employers, resulting in hundreds of millions of dollars in losses. Now, Mr. Maxwell perished in 1991 on board of his yacht in a supposed drowning-suicide. While the Rothschilds' involvement in his disappearance is unclear, the event tarnished the family's reputation. The most astonishing part of this story is not Robert Maxwell himself. That was later confirmed to be a double or even a triple secret agent for the Mossad. He was Khazarian mafia after all, and MI5 and probably CIA. The yacht was named after his beloved daughter, Ghislaine Maxwell, known associate and now jailbird of Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein is also Khazarian mafia, but on steroids. That has resulted in the only case of child sex trafficking during the decades to absolutely nobody. None of the clients has ever seen a day behind bars, yet it is indeed very funny how these things go in these circles, is it not? Enough said about that issue. One of the most fascinating things I've discovered is the then infamous Rotschild parties, the most famous being the one in 1972, the Surreal Gala, they called it. Marie-Helene de Rothschild, the lady with the horns in the picture here, hosted this surreal party at the Château de Ferrières mansion in Paris. You can see her on screen now with the horns. So the question arises, are these the horns of Baal that we spoke of before? Maybe. If we look at the mansion where the party was held, on the picture right now, it appears that it's on fire. The lighting effects is very special. Party attendees, some illustrious guests, I suppose. Look at this freak show. And these guys. It must have been a very, very interesting party. Here we have the beautiful Audrey Hepburn in a birdcage. What is that? Is that a signal that she's been captured somehow? Here we have probably my favorite of them all, Mr. Salvador Dali, which actually showed up as himself. He wasn't even dressed up. Was he already deranged enough as it was in order to fit in? Who knows? And to finish the whole thing, here we have the beautiful servings. Bon appetit. I mean, if this isn't a freak show, I don't know what to say. These people are really, really seriously disturbed. As if it was not strange enough already, here's a picture of the invitation card, written backwards. A typical satanic inversion. Now, I will end this chapter with another very significant factoid that made me tickle all over. On February 25th in 2024, the video below was shown online. I saw it on X at the time, Twitter. It is supposed to symbolize the death of the king. The white horse is the king's horse. And as he is not riding it, he has obviously passed. Let's play this video for you now and see what you think about it.
Super rare in the middle of the Mall in central London. This is incredible. Now, from what I can see, this is the Blues and Royals regiment carrying the colour. Now, this is super rare. You don't often see this at all. Just popped out of nowhere. So I wonder what's going on. This is incredible. So we're in the middle of central London, just off St James's Park on the Mall. Now, often the white horse comes out when the king is present, but for what I can see, the king isn't around at the moment, and how I know that is the royal standard should be flying, but it's not flying right now. It's a Union flag that's flying, so I don't know why we're seeing what we're seeing right now. Just incredible. Now it looks like the colour, which is the flag, is covered in a waterproof outer, like a coat. So that indeed is to protect the colour if it is raining. Now why these 3 guards are riding down the middle of the mall right now, I have no idea. That was a complete surprise. So this is definitely a rare sighting, as the monarch is not in today. Never ever seen this happen before. Quite incredible. Quite incredible. This is the Blues and Royals Regiment.
So enough of that. As you could see on the video, one soldier was holding the flag, but it's folded with a black tarp around it. King Charles, Prince at the time, I suppose, was at the time diagnosed with very serious cancer, and as of this writing, has still not passed. But he's not long for this world, I'm sure. Nevertheless, the symbology was all there, and I was expecting to have an announcement of the king's death at the time. But you know what happens? It turns out I was not correct. The real king of England did pass. This guy, Jacob Rotschild, just a couple of days after this video came out in public. The real king of England did pass away, and they took the horses out to show it to the world. Now we can show you another interesting picture of Jacob Rotschild, the real king of England, together with Marina Abramovich, well-known satanic witch and life coach. Life coach to the elites, such as Lady Gaga. She was instructed by Marina Abramovich. It's interesting, these pictures, because the painting behind them is called Satan's Legions. Isn't that something? Also, sometime after, on April 25th, involving the same horses we saw in this video, another very peculiar event occurred. One day, 5 horses of the royal guard escaped, and two or three of them managed to run down the street and were filmed. The white horse, the king's, is clearly bleeding from what appears to be a nasty wound. What this means, I do not know, and I don't wish to speculate, but it's very intriguing nonetheless. So let's watch this short clip.
So we had a very strange occurrence happen in London, England today. And I wasn't going to make a video about this, but something about it symbolically jumped out at me. And the picture of this event sort of ties in to the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse in Revelation. So, yeah, that's pretty heavy, right? But hey, wasn't going to make it, but it's 2024. I'm going to go ahead and just spill the beans on this one and tell you what I think. So, earlier today, somewhere near Buckingham Palace, we have these royal guards and their horses. And apparently there was some type of load of concrete, I think they said, being dislodged or unloaded from a building that fell. And when it fell, it spooked several of the horses. Now, this is where it starts to get a little weird. They said 5 of the horses that were nearby heard this clang, this big, huge boom. This is a rare thing. They're trained thoroughly not to react to this type of stuff. So that's strange in and of itself. But we're all familiar with the picture of the 4 horsemen. But in Revelation, there are actually 5. And Christ is supposed to be the 5th one. So, technically speaking, there are 5 horsemen of the apocalypse, Christ being the 5th. 5 men during this event were dislodged from the horses, and 5 ran away. And three of them were caught within, I don't know, maybe a few hundred feet of where they were spooked, and they ran off. But 2 of them made it about 5 miles away. And this is kind of crazy. This is, if you're skittish about blood and harm to animals, then you might not want to look at this too closely. But when the 2 of them made their way, still sort of running down the street and making their way down, downtown London, they were wrecking into cabs, and I think one ran into a bus and ran into the glass. And of course, it started to bleed, the white one. So we have this image of these 2 horses galloping down the street. One's black, one's white, and the white one being half covered in blood. And I just want to go over what the colors of these 4 horsemen are. The first 3 of the 4 horsemen. Okay. The first one is white, and that one represents conquest. And the second was red for war. And the black represented pestilence or famine, disease.
So, that's an interesting video clip, isn't it? Very symbolic. If you even read Revelations, they describe exactly what you're watching. Okay? So we live in a very interesting world. Open your eyes, or you might actually miss it. Here is supposedly a picture of the Rothschilds in their mansion somewhere. And I particularly like the dude in the middle. I would love to buy that guy a beer. I really, really would. So, I know it's been a long episode, the longest so far, but there are many, many more to come. So keep your eyes peeled, and I'll see you on the next one, where we discuss the Opium Wars and its implications on the world. That's all for me. Max out. Peace.